بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم كلا إن الإنسان ليطغى أن رآه استغنى إن إلى ربك الرجعى
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما اللهم افتح علينا بركتك وانشر علينا رحمتك بقوتك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Today, inshallah, we will start the series of lectures about Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba. We will hold maybe 2 or 3 sessions about his life and the history of the development of the Muridiyya and everything that is related to it. But today, inshallah, we will talk about Islam before Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba and the circumstances in which Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba grew up in, and how his family and the tradition of his family flourished before him, centuries before him. So Islam, as we know from some records of West African historians, they say that Islam started to flourish and started to enter in Senegal from Mauritania up here, from the north. So Islam started from there through people that are called the Murabitun, and those are people who are merchants who used to come from Morocco and those places and go through Mauritania and go towards Tekrur and the lands of Fouta. So they started interacting with the people of the Tekrur, or Tukular as we call them in Wolof. They started to interact with those people, and that's how the people of Senegal started to be exposed to Islam. So primarily the only relationship that they had were commercial, meaning they used to always have trade and stuff like that. But the people of Senegal, in northern Senegal, they started to see how these people had great virtues and ethics, and they were very honest and truthful. So they started to have to be interested in their religion and the things that they believed in. So that's where they the Murabitun started giving da'wah, and surely some people from those lands started embracing Islam. And when Islam started to spread in those lands, there was a man named Warjabi. His name was Warjabi, and he's said to be one of the first people who embraced Islam in the lands of Tekrur or Fouta. And by the help of the Murabitun, Warjabi started to do jihad to spread Islam in the southern lands, in the lands of Jolof and Kajor and stuff like that. So that's how Islam started to spread in the Wall States. So in Mauritania, in Tekrur, a lot of the inhabitants over there, they were Moors. But Jolof, Kajor, Baol, Salum, the inhabitants over there were the Wolof. So that's why they're called the Wolof empires or kingdoms or states. So as time passed by, a lot of with the people from Futa who started embracing Islam and started to spread Islam. Now, the circumstances in which those Muslims at that time, Islam was not established. Islam was not fully established. And to understand really the circumstances in which the Muslims were living at that time, we can look at it from two perspectives, from a social-religious perspective and also from a socio-political perspective. Now, the social-religious perspective, from a social-religious perspective, we can say that Islam can be divided. At that time, we had two periods. The period before Qadi Ammar and the period after Qadi Ammar. So before Qadi Ammar, the circumstances in which the Muslims were living, Islam didn't have an establishment. There were not Quranic schools. There were not many Quranic schools. The people, if they wanted to learn the Quran, they had to go to Mauritania or travel a long distance to learn the Quran and to also learn Islam, to learn the basic knowledge of creed and stuff like that. So at that time, the people who became Muslims, they were strange. They were very strange to people. They were very, very strange because they used to see them recite in Arabic and say stuff in Arabic, and to them that was very, very alien. And they used to see them also pray and do these movements, and they were always interested to what are these people doing. And also one of the things that they were living was that the Ceddo, or the people who did not believe in Islam, the pagans, or the Senegalese who were living in those lands before Islam, they were very, very hostile to the Muslims. They were very violent. So there were some accounts in which they would find Muslim praying and they will beat them up, or they will go to their places of worship and kill a pork in their places of worship. So that's why they didn't have like an established Islam. Islam was not powerful. They did not have Quranic teachers, Quranic schools. They did not have big mosques, and they did not have also Jumu'ah and all of that. But at the time of Qadi Ammar, he was one of the first people who established Quranic schools, and he was the first also to establish, centers of learning knowledge, and also he was the first to establish big mosques for people to come gather and pray the Jumu'ah and all of that. So the period after Qadi Ammar, there was it was a turning point. The situation was a little bit different. So that's from a socio-religious perspective. Now, from a socio-political perspective, there were many kingdoms, just like I show you here. There were the Jolof state, the Kajor, Sin, Salum, and all of that, Bawal. And in every state, they had kingdoms. They have kings and rulers. So many of them, if not all of them actually, they were not Muslim. All of them, they were not Muslim. So before before Latukabe, the Muslim clerics, the Muslims who learned Islam and had knowledge, and they were the leaders of the minority of Muslims who were living in those states. Before that, the clerics, the only power that they had was like they were close to the kings, even though the kings, they were not Muslims. But the kings, they used to take counsel and take also the Muslim clerics as advisors. So that's the only type of power that they had, that the Muslims had before Latukabe. Now after Latukabe, he initiated some reforms. He is the one who initiated some reforms. Now, one of the things that he established was differentiating between two types of Muslim leaders. So he's the one who initiated the Sering Lambu and Sering Faqital. Now, Sering Lambu they were the type of Muslim clerics who used to be close to the kings, and they used to serve also as advisors, and they used to participate in wars and stuff like that, meaning they had full collaboration and full involvement in the government and the courtrooms and the state. Now, the Sering Faqital, they were the groups of Muslim clerics who did not have full collaboration and full involvement in the government or the state or with the kings, but they were secluded. They had like small towns, and they had farms, and they had their Quranic schools and stuff like that, and they had students that they were teaching, and those students used to work for them in their farms. So, and the kings, they had respect. Lasukabe, he's the one who introduced that he gave full respect and protection to those type of Muslim clerics. But he used to also take advice and also sometimes bring them to court and just take counsel from them. And the Sering Faqital were the only people whom, when the king received them, they don't have to bow down to the king, because when the king received someone, they used to take their headwear and also bow down. But Latukabe did not allow that for those type of clerics, because they believed that these people, they had supernatural powers. They believed that, if they anger them, they might get, some type of supernatural thing happen to them. So that's why the Sering Faqital and all of that, they did not do that for the kings. And the family of Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba is from those type of Muslim clerics. The Sering Faqital, the people who did not have any involvement with the court, the government, and the state. They used to be separate and secluded in their villages and teaching and taking care of their farms and all of that. And then after Latukabe, he was the king of Jollof. He was the king of Jollof. After Latukabe came Amaringone Ndela. Now, when Latukabe initiated that reform, the Muslim community started to have a little bit of power. It started to emerge, and they started to have a little bit of power, to the point where some of the Muslim clerics started to doubt and, you know, be a little bit not hostile, but they started to think about like the how the Chedo were leading the Muslims, because the Muslim community, they started to, you know, have, you know, to be a more powerful. Now they wanted to overturn everything, because they wanted to stop the Chedo, the kings that were not Muslims, from leading the Muslim community, and start to have Muslim clerics actually lead the community. Now, Ahmadou, he started to see that. He started to see how the Muslims are starting to really develop and have a strong community. And also at that time, there were some people around Mauritania and Fouta who used to organize some, you know, military forces in order to attack the Wall of States, because they thought that people who were not Muslim didn't have any right to lead a majority community of Muslim. They shouldn't lead the community of the Muslims. So they started to have some military forces to organize, and they had the intention to attack some of the Wall of States. So that's what led to the incident in which one of Cheikh Bamba's grandfather, Mahram, and I'm going to go in detail about his life and all his grandfathers. They started to Mahram had a classmate that somebody he went to Dara with, by the name of Malamin Sarr. So he was one of the people whom they suspected of being part of that conspiracy, meaning one of the people who allied themselves with the jihadists, or the people who intended to attack the Wall of States. So that's what reached the king, to the point where the king, you know, assassinated him. Now, to understand really that the full story and how the Mbacke family flourished, and how they became such a powerful and prestigious family, and where the Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba emerged from, we have to understand the lineage of Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba. We have to understand the lineage of Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba. Now, the Mbacke family is said to have originated from Fouta, from here, Dekru, from Fouta. And there are two opinions to where the word Mbacke come from, that name Mbacke. Muhammad Lamine Dagana says that there were some people from Bababe. It's a country, it's a people ethnicity in Senegal. He said that somebody from that ethnicity told him that the Mbacke actually come from Bah, because Bah is a common family name in Senegal, and the Ha was turned into a Kaf, Mbacke. So he says that some people told him that the word Mbacke come from that, but he says that opinion seems to be weak. To him, it's very weak. And there is also another opinion that the word Mbacke come from Maki, meaning the one who is from Makkah, Maki. And with the Wolof language, sometimes they tend to change like the pronunciation of certain words, and that's when they started to say Mbacke. And Muhammad Lamin Job Dagana says that many of those opinions are weak, and what he thinks is that the word, that last name Mbacke, is just one of the old, family names that are very, very old, that originated from, long times ago. So Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba, his name is Ahmed. We have to understand his linealogy and go from there. His name is Ahmed, and his father's name is Muhammad, but he's more commonly known as Mamour Anta Sali. And Mamour Anta Sali, his father's name is Habibullah, or Mambala Aisha. He's more known as Mambala Aisha. And Mambala Aisha, his father is Muhammad al-Kabir. And Muhammad al-Kabir, his father's name is Habibullah al-Awwal. And Habibullah al-Awwal, his father's name is Muhammad al-Khair. And that Muhammad al-Khair, Muhammad al-Bashir Mbacke, the son of Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba, he says that Muhammad al-Khair is said to be the one who migrated from the lands of Futa and came to Jolof. He's the first from the Mbacke family to migrate from the lands of Futa to Jolof. And it is said that Muhammad al-Khair and his family, they originated from a tribe in Mauritania that are called Alumudinallah. And those people, they migrated to Futa and they stayed there for a long time. And then Muhammad al-Khair migrated from there and went to Futa. And it is said that the reason why he migrated from Futa is because of an epidemic that spread out in Futa. And some they said that they were traveling because they were looking for land, or there was drought. There are many opinions that are said, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. And some people, they also said that the first person from the Mbacke family to migrate from Futa, his name was actually Uthman Ba. And those opinions, they usually come from oral tradition. It's not like a written thing, but it's from oral tradition. Now, when Muhammad al-Khair, or Uthman Ba, according to another opinion, migrated from Futa to Jolof, Mahram Mbacke was born in Jolof, there in Mbacke Jolof, and he's the one who founded Mbacke Jolof. So every time the Mbacke family, wherever they go, and they found a village over there, they name it Mbacke something, Mbacke Ball, Mbacke Jolof, Mbacke something. So that's why you hear a lot of Mbacke something. So Muhammad al-Khair is the one who founded Mbacke Jolof, and Mahram Mbacke was born in Mbacke Jolof. So it is said that the whole history of the Mbacke family and the reason why the Mbacke family is such a prestigious family, the whole history and the whole baraka came from this man, Mahram Mbacke. So he was born in Mbacke Jolof, and just like the tradition of his family, he learned the Quran at a young age, and he also learned the Islamic science, fiqh, the grammar and all of that. And he studied in Koki. And there he had some classmates. One of them is Malamid Sar, and also other classmates that are related to Lajor. And he also studied in Futa. He also studied in Futa, and also it is said that he also studied in Mauritania. And when he finished his learning, he went back to Mbacke Jolof. And just like it was the norm and the custom, or it was the tradition, that if somebody wants to emerge as a new Islamic figure or a Muslim cleric, to establish their authority. And the way they will do it is that they will go to families that are known to be very religious and very pious, and they marry from them. And after that, they go and they establish and they find their own village. They go and they establish their own village. So he did the same thing. After he finished learning, he married some wives, and then he founded Mbacke Bawol. He's the one who founded Mbacke Bawol. And around that time, just like I said, he had one of his classmates, Malaman Sarr. He was said to be one of the people who were involved in the rebellion or the conspiracies of the people of Futa to attack the Wolof states. So when Ahmadou Ndella knew of that, he sent somebody to assassinate him. And now when they knew of that, they were very furious, because they saw that what they started to do is to target the Muslim clerics and to assassinate them. So that's why they called for jihad. Even the Muslims who were then they had a little bit of power, but they were still minorities. They wanted to wage jihad against the Ceddo, and they sent people to go to the major cities and collect one of the greatest clerics and Muslim scholars who were there to join the jihad. And they sent to Imam Mahram, and at that time he was in Bawol. So they sent to him a letter to join the jihad, but he refused. He didn't want to join the jihad because in his opinion, that it is not jihad per se. Just because somebody killed somebody that you love, or somebody that you know, or one person that you used to know, and then you want to wage jihad against a group of people, that's not the jihad that Islam teaches. That's called in Arabic hamiya, meaning tribalism. Somebody killed my brother or somebody that I know, I'm going to wage war against you. That's how he viewed it, but he didn't view it as Islamically. He didn't see anything in Islam, any evidence in Islam that could substantiate him participating in that jihad. So that's why he refused. And sometimes later, he traveled to Jolof to give his condolences. And when he went there, he didn't just enter the kingdom. He went to the outskirts of the kingdom, and he sent somebody to ask permission to enter the kingdom. So when they went to the king, Ahmadou Ndella, and they asked permission, he allowed them to enter. And when he came, he really was very hospitable to them, and he appreciated like his demeanor and how he handled the situation, and how he was very respectable to the position of the kings. So the king, Ahmadou Ndella, offered to give him lands in Jolof. He offered to give him land in Jolof. No, actually, he offered to give him land in Bawol. He offered to give him land in Bawol, and because at that time Ahmadou Ndella was the king of Jolof and Bawol, the same. Those two says he was the same. He was the king of Bawol and Jolof. So he offered to give him some lands, but Amari Gonanela, he took, but Mama Haram, he took the offer, but he couldn't live, you know, in Bawol. So he um, appointed some of his oldest son. He appointed his oldest son Ahmed Farimata to stay in Mbake Bawol, and many of his children. So he's the one who founded Mbake Bawol, but he did not reside in Mbake Bawol. He went back. He did not reside in Mbake Bawol. So that's how he founded Mbake Bawol, and many of his children were living in Mbake Bawol. Among them was Mambal Aisha or Habibullah. And Habibullah is the father of Mahmoud Anta Salim. So Habibullah also, he followed the same tradition of the Mbake family. He learned Islam, and he also had his own dara and his own disciples. And there is not much information about Mambal Aisha, but the more important part of this part of Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba's life was Mamour Anta Sali. So Mamour Anta Sali was born in Mbake Bawol, in Mbake Bawol, and just like his forefathers, he did the same thing. He studied in Koki with Masamba Anta Diop, and Masamba Anta Diop is one of the descendants of Cheikh Makhtar Numbe Diop, and Cheikh Makhtar Numbe Diop is the founder of Koki. It's called Dara in Senegal. He is the founder of that Dara, and Mamour Anta Sali studied with one of his descendants, Masamba Anta Diop, and he also went to Salum and he studied with Muhammad Saleh. With Muhammad Saleh, and that person, Muhammad Saleh, he was said to be a very great scholar and a man of great barakah. But when he passed, he did not leave any children. So, and Muhammad Saleh was also from the people of Bamba. That's why Mamour Anta Sali named the Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba. Now the Bamba came from that because Mamour Anta Sali studied with Muhammad Saleh, and Muhammad Saleh was from the people of Bamba, and that was a custom. When they revere somebody, they would try to attach, their name to their son or something that they hold very important. Now, when he finished studying, Mamour Anta Sali, when he went and studied just like his forefathers did, that was their tradition, he taught in Jakan. And he also married wives and stayed in Jakan. And Jakan was the village of his uncles. Jakan was the village of his uncle, and when he was teaching there, he was living with Ahmed bin Takan, and Ahmed bin Takan is his uncle, the full brother of his mother Anta Sali. So he taught there for a very, very, very long time. But after that, he founded a village that is close to Mbake Bawol that he named Khuru Mbake, and that's where Ahmadou Bamba was born. Now, a lot of times they say Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba was born in Mbake Bawol. He was not born in actually Mbake Bawol, but in a very small city, and that was a city that his father built to teach people, and that was Khuru Mbake, and that was actually where Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba was born. But the mainstream narrative is that Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba was born in Mbake Bawol. And that's how Mamour Anta Sali was living. And at this time, the Cheikh was born, but I'm not gonna go in detail in the Cheikh life. I'm gonna give just information about what was going on around him when he was growing up, and then maybe in the next lecture I will give details about Cheikh Bamba himself and how he grew up. So that's how Mamor Andesali was living, and his family, and the Cheikh at that time, he was very, very young. He was a newborn. That's when there was a king by the name of Maba Jakuba. That's when he started to emerge. And he embraced Islam, and he felt that he should establish Sharia, and he said he should establish like the laws of Islam. So he conquered many of the surrounding. He was from Salum, from Salum, and he conquered many of the surrounding areas, many of the surrounding places. So when he did that, he feared that many of the Cheddar will retaliate on the Muslims, because he was very powerful. He had an army. He was very powerful. So when he attacked the neighboring cities, he feared that the Muslims in those cities, they were minorities. He feared that the Cheddars will retaliate on them. So that's when he decided to gather all of them and take them and protect them. So that's why he went to Bawol and the neighboring cities in Kajor, and he took many of the Muslims who were there, and among them was Mamor Antasali and his family. Mamor Antasali and his family. So he gathered all of them and he brought them to Salum. So when he brought all of them to Salum, at that time also Lajor was overturned from Jolof. He was, excommunicated. The French. He had a dispute and some it's political things with the French. So they overturned the kingdom. So they excommunicated him. So he sought refuge in Salum next to Maba Jakuba. But when he went there, people wouldn't allow him to enter Salum except that he accept Islam. So he accepted Islam, and then he resided in Salum with Maba. That's why a lot of people, they started to doubt like whether he was sincere or not. Even many of the clerics at that time, they didn't trust Lajor that much, because he just was seeking refuge. That's why he accepted Islam. And Maba, when he gathered all the Muslims in Salum, he was still continuing to do his jihad, and he decided to attack the people of Sin. And Sin is around here, around Bawal, Bawal and Salum. So he decided to attack the people of Sin, but to him, the people of Sin, he thought that they were very weak people that he could just attack and just destroy like that. But to his surprise, they were very, very prepared to fight to their death. So when he went there, he didn't have much preparation. So he died in the battle when he was in Sin. And Muhammad Bashir Mbake said that when he was struck and he had many wounds, he was dying, and people, they were trying to grab him and turn him to the Qibla, to the Kaaba, towards the direction of the Kaaba. But he told them to stop because he didn't want to look like he was running. He told them to stop, and he died with his wounds and all of that. So when Maba Jahu died, a lot of the Muslims who was in Salum, they started going back to their homes. They started going back, and at that same time, Lajor managed to reclaim his kingdom in Kajor. So Lajor also took many people and they went back to Kajor. There's a lot of information about that, but I don't want to go through it because it's not important for this discussion. So when Mamor Antasali was in Salom, that was a turning point for the Mbake family, because before that, just like I said, they were considered sitting Faqtal, meaning the clerics who were separate and took their distance from the government, from the state, from the kings and all of that, and they separated themselves. They live in seclusion in their village, having their farms and having their students and their schools. But when Mamor Antasali was in Salum, that's when he met Khalima Jakhate Kala. And Khalima Jakhate Kala was a judge. He was also a great scholar of grammar and Arabic literature. And he also, even Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba, he learned from him. So, and Khalima Jakhate Kala is from the Jakhate family. And the Jakhate family also, they are very known for being the people of Quran. They are known to memorize the Quran and they are known to be people of virtues, and they are known to be also people who have a great they are known also to have connection with the state and the government and the kings and all of that. So he met Khalima Jakhate Kala, and they started to build a great friendship. So their friendship really influenced Mamor Antasali. Their friendship really influenced Mamor Antasali, because Mamor Antasali wasn't engaging in any way, shape, or form. He didn't have any affiliation with the kings and the state. But after he met Khalima Jakhate Kala, he started to incline slowly towards, having affiliation and inclination towards the king. And he also met, when he was in Salum, he also met Lajor, because Lajor came to Salum. He met with Lajor and they also built friendship. And it is said that Lajor used to really love Mamor Antasali, and he had a lot of affection for him, to the point where he offered his niece to Mamor Antasali, and her name was Choro Marosijo. I don't know that name. Choro Marosijo. So they said that Lajor had a lot of affection for Mamor Antasali, to the point where he gave his niece to Mamor Antasali. So that's how much affection he had for Mamor Antasali. So even though Mamor Antasali started to have that inclination towards the state and the kings and stuff like that, but he also had a lot. He was very vigilant, and he was very wary. He had a lot of strategies in which he was dealing with and operating with the kings. So after Lajor regained his throne, Mamor Antasali did not move with him, because Lajor to Kajor so that he can take him as an advisor and as a judge. But Mamor Antasali did not want to move with Lajor. He waited until 3 years and then he went back to and around that time, that's when Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba's mom, Mam Jarabu, so that's when she passed, and that's why she's buried in Porokhan. Here, this is Porokhan. That's why she's buried in Porokhan, because when she passed away, that's when Baba Jacoba gathered all the Muslims in Salem. So, just like I said, when Lat Dior wanted to regain his throne, he wanted to gather and have many Muslim clerics that he could take as advisors and judge. And one of them was Mahmud Antasali. But Mahmud Antasali, with his own strategies, he didn't want to accompany Lat Dior everywhere he went at the same time. So he waited until 3 years after Lat Dior went to Kajor, and he went there. And when he went there, he was living in Patar. He was not living in the city in which Lat Dior was living. The capital in which Lat Dior was living was Kër Amadou Yalla. Lat Dior was living in Kër Amadou Yalla. But when Mahmud Antasali went to Kajor, he was living in Patar. A different city. And when he was there, he used to go to the court and to consult Lat Dior every Thursday. That's the day that he took to go to Lat Dior and consult him and help him with the things that were going on. So Mahmud Antasali, he had a lot of students. So he couldn't mix politics and teaching and being a cleric and a judge. He couldn't mix that with being involved in political stuff every single day. So that's why he took Thursday as the day in which he would go to Kër Amadou Yalla and consult about the things that were going on, whether it was disputes that were happening that he needed to resolve, or something was happening, there was a war or something, and he would consult Lat Dior. So things were going like that until Lat Dior moved to Suger. Lat Dior moved his capital from Kër Amadou Yalla to Suger. And when he did that, again, Mahmud Antasali did not want to move with him at the same time or live in the same place. He went and he founded Mbake Kajor. That's when he founded Mbake Kajor, close to Suger. And he was doing the same thing. He was there and he had his students and his farms, and whenever Lat Dior needed him, he would go and do his duty. And when he moved to Suger, he only lived there 2 years, and then he passed away in 1888. In 1882, and he was buried in Dakhla. And it is said that when he passed away, Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba was, before he passed away, when he was on his deathbed, Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba was with him in the room, and Mahmud Antasali gave him many advice. And there are some accounts in which people mention that Mahmud Antasali said to him that I've seen a lot of barakah in you, so I entrust you my family and everything, and all the matters of my family. I'm appointing you to protect and take care of my family. And then he told him, I know that when I was in this life, I did good things and I did bad things. I was telling people to do good and I was forbidding from bad. But where I'm going right now, I don't know what I will find in there. So I want you to promise me that I will be fine in there. And according to that narration, the Sheikh told him that you will be fine in there. And that same narration says that Mahmud Antasali also said I entrust you in my family, and I ask you to pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pours His barakah in my family to the point where they would have their livelihood without any sweat. And he said, I want you to guarantee that for me. And according to that narration, the Sheikh said that he guaranteed that for him. And that narration is that's almost the mainstream narration, because that comes from oral tradition. But many of the writers in the history of Wurdiya, they say that that narration is very, very strange because of two things. Why would Mamar Antasali tell Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba, who was very young at that time? He was just emerging. He was teaching in his father's school, and he wasn't established as a known cleric. He was known for being Mamar Antasali's son, but he wasn't established yet. And at that time, the Sheikh didn't even have that Sufi mentality. So why would he tell, and Mahmoud Antasali being this great cleric who knows Islamic theology and all of that, why would he ask Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba, who was young, to guarantee him that he will be fine in the hereafter? And the second thing is, why would also Mahmoud Antasali ask Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba to pray that Allah pour His blessings on his family to the point where they will have to have livelihood and be good without even working? So a lot of people, they say that was, something that people invented after the Sheikh, because of like some conspiracies. There are a lot of conspiracies, and some of them I've omitted because it's not important for this lecture. But there are a lot of conspiracies and things that people say, and there are a lot of also speculations to why people would invent certain things like that. And even though that account is true, that happened, but many of the things that people say about that account did not happen. And there are also other sources, even though they're oral sources. There are also other sources that do not mention all of that. Other sources, they mention that when Mahmoud Antasali was passing away, he gave a lot of advice to Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba and told Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba to pursue his studying Islam and keeping the tradition, the tradition of the Mecca family alive. So that's where the journey of Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba himself started. So that's the overall circumstances in which Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba grew up in, and a little bit of the history of the Mecca family and how he grew up. So next time, inshallah, I will give more detail about Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba himself and how he grew up. I omitted a lot of information because I just wanted to give like the circumstances in which he grew up in. So that's it. If anybody has a question,
It's too short. It's too short.
Yeah.
Just a logistical question. So you know how like in history classes they teach you that like before Senegal was Senegal, it was Mali. It was the big Mali Empire, and it was Mansa Musa was the king of it. And then they teach you about his pilgrimage to Mecca and all of that. So like, wasn't he the first person to like establish Islam in that like area of what Mali used to be?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. Because if that happened, then it didn't reach the far end of Senegal. Because like this is like the far end,
Your microphone.
and
It's the mic.
this is like the far end of Senegal. the far end of West Africa. So I don't think even if he established a lot of Islamic rules and Sharia, it didn't reach that part. And it is also said that all of that happened before even Senegal, even before Islam reached Senegal, because Islam came in Senegal 140 CE. So I don't think even if he established a lot of Islamic Sharia and all of that, it did not reach this part of Senegal, because this part it was there were a lot of Ceddo. It's the Ceddo that ruled.
We call them pagans.
Hmm?
We call them pagans.
Yes, because they did not believe in Islam. They only believed in like you know, Ndako. You know, I don't know how to call it. You know, like type of voodoo type of stuff. You know. Yeah.
Is it voodoo, but is it traditional also? It's both.
You know what I don't understand is, you say they don't believe in Islam, and paganism is like Islam. So Islam means that there's a group of people who don't believe in the majority religion. So Islam was established.
No, they were. What is your understanding of pagan?
Like pagans are people who believe in a religion that a different religion from the majority. Like
I thought pagan was people who did not believe in like monotheist, people who believed in like you know, like how people believe in like spirits, you know, and stuff like that. They don't believe in Abrahamic religion, meaning they don't practice Abraham. They're not Christian, they're not Jews, they're not Muslims, but they believe in spirits, and they, you know, they sacrifice stuff for spirits and stuff like that. So those are the pagans, meaning they believe in polytheism. They have many gods and they believe in idols. They believe in spirit and stuff like that.
So that was what was going on.
Yeah, that was what was going on in Senegal before Islam.
Bashir, bismillah. mooy laaj. maanaam dafa bëri ci wuute ñu naan xaaral ma jaaree kala jàng na sëñ bi. ñu naan da ko doon toppal rek. mais nag loolu laa bëgg ak leeral tout le temps.
waaw ñu bëri nee nañu maanaam sëñ bi daan dem ci xaalima jaxate kala ngir saa bu bindee mu koy xoolal daal ndax am na ay damm wala yooyu, ba mu dem sax ba saa bu ko sëñ Moussa la indil bind bi sëñ bi demee ba kii ko daal ba mën way lool, dafa daan dem saa bu ko joxee way mu ne ko lii kenn mën na koy mokkal waaye mu ne ko lii. waaye lu ci ëpp li gën a lëng wala boog li gën a nan laa ko mën a waxee sax li gën a wér wala boog li gën a jàpp ne li gën a jàmtalu daal moo di jàngee na ci moom, parce que jamono yooyu bëri woon ñu daan jàngale arut ak way ni ko Xaalima Jaxate Kala daan jàngale. même bu jàngewul ci moom tamit am na feneen fu mu ko jàngee, maanaam ba ndaxte bi mu nekkee moom daanaka kiiwul lu bëri bi mu doon jàng, kiiwul lu bëri, génnul woon lu bëri, tukkiwul woon lu bëri. ñu jege waajuram la wala boog ñu ko jege ci mbokk, moo tax bi mu demee Saalum ci la gën a ubbeeku, ci la daje Xaalima Jaxate Kala, ci la daje ak ñeneen ñu bëri ñoo xam ne ko daan jàngale foofu lañ daan ñëw. comme li gën a jàpp daal li gën a jàmpal mooy ni dëgg-dëgg jàngee na ci ñoom, jëlee na ci ñoom xam-xam.
Cheikh Mohamed Sam, you have a question? C'est Mohamed. Question. Yeah. Khalid. soxna yi kenn amul question Maguette amul question.
Is there still practice in some parts of Senegal?
What?
Is like the chadda, right? Do they still practice in some parts of Senegal?
Yeah.
What
What
parts?
parts? In Dakar, many, all of the Senegal, everywhere in Senegal, they still practice that.
Like it's very common.
Hmm?
It's very common.
Not that common, but you will find it in some places. It's more common in some places than others.
léegi daanaka ceeb la léegi ay famille la daal ñoo xam famille ceeb la ñu xam ne man nañ nekk ay julli mais ci seen biir ñun dañuy gëm lépp lu ceeb lay daan dund dañuy julli di woor mais bu waree njabar
ñu war a jabar ak
yu mel noonu nga xam ñoom li ñu gëm dañ koy gëm mais Saalum moom la gën a bare Saalum
am na Dakar tamit ci lépp.
foofu la gën a bare xam nga Dakar moom côté Casamance
waaw ci Casamance ci Ziguinchor
côté Casamance yi ñun non dañuy ceeb mais ñoom kii lañ leneen
Something that is Spanish in 100 feet.
classe yi yàlla na comme yàlla na
Senegal is not a country during my time.
Ceddo moom
sëñ Bachir yàlla na ceddo
la
yàlla
non yan mooy siin la ñoom ñoo duma Maba kii Maba Jaw
dañoo xewoon.
dañoo xew ñoom
gisoo may reetaan bi nga si moom. maa ma joxoon ba daa bëggoon lu yomb rek.
Bachir man de kii bi wax dëgg yàlla dafa tuuti ci man lool donte xawoon naa génn ndax xale yi waaye gis naa ne man ngaa gën a kii tuuti.
non partie la koy def moo tax Parce que
ah wax
parce que lii sax su ma leen laajoon sax information yi foofu yëpp mënuñ ca jaarale. information yi dafa bëri.
man de anglais moom soo mënoon na suñu fi level bi tuuti dana ma anglais.
Oustaz
high level.
Oh, I have a
No, I'm talking in general, Bashir.
Deals with the Americans.
No, li muy wax baax na mais léeg-léeg mu wax ay vocabulaire
No,
diis
how
yoo
did
xam ne
everybody's last name?
vocabulaire yu simple. politique
si yow.
dem politique d'accord.
waaye si yéen si yéen. waaye ñun ñaar ngay.
I you go say hi to me, boy. No,
noo tuddee ceeb ba ceeb na noppi baax na si bi soxna si baax.
Pass you up.